Palm oil is everywhere, from cookies to cosmetics, but it's also a major driver of deforestation, with new EU rules cracking down on imports tied to forest loss. One Estonian startup is brewing a sustainable alternative. IO turns sawdust into oil using 97% less land and 90% less water than palm oil. Kristi, you're brewing oils the way we brew beer. How does that actually work, and what makes IO's approach different?
At IO, we produce alternative oils and fats from industrial side streams, and we use a proprietary yeast to ferment in a big bioreactor and produce oils and fats. As in traditional wine and beer making industry, you would have the yeast produce alcohol, but our yeast is clever enough to produce oils and fats.
And you've developed a yeast strain you call the red bug. What's special about it, and what kinds of oils can you produce?
Our red bug indeed does produce an oil which is rich in carotenoids, which we perceive as red, giving this oil a lovely red color, which makes it very appealing to the cosmetic sector since it contains antioxidants.
And so how does it compare to what is used currently on the market?
It does give a lot of benefits in terms of transparent supply chain, environmental footprint, but also gives a certain security to the producer that there's abundance of this material to them if they use our technology to produce from their own side streams.
After fermentation, you end up with 3 distinct products. Can you walk us through how you get from one process to those 3 outcomes?
We use low-value industrial side streams, feed these to our yeast, and use a fermentation process. And during that process, the yeast actually produces oils and fats. And depending on how we treat these oils and fats later on our downstream process, we end up with these 3 products. The first one being a powdery form of oils and fats, a very interesting new concept. Once we take the oil out of the powder, we get our second product, which is the red oil, which is a liquid form of oil and rich in antioxidants. Very appealing to the cosmetic sector, but can also be used in food. And our third product is the solid form of fat. We call it Zima-lipid complex, and this can be a substitute for coconut fat in different applications.
Palm oil has scale and low cost on its side. How do you compete with such an established global industry?
Indeed, we see that from one side, there is a demand for these kinds of alternatives. On the other side, IO is providing the technology. Now we see that the regulation is there to combine this together and really support the shift towards more sustainable oils and fats.
Your first commercial launch is planned in cosmetics. Why start there instead of food?
We see a strong pull from the cosmetics industry. There's a clear pull from the customers towards more sustainable and more transparent supply chains. So this is why we've gone through the route of going to the market with cosmetics first, but we also have food in the pipeline, and we haven't forgotten that.
Scaling up from lab to industrial production is always challenging. What's the toughest part of that journey for IO?
In terms of scaling, we've been quite successful in going from lab scale to, we've got a 300-liter pilot plant operational in Tallinn, and this year we've managed to scale to 10,000 liters and are going to be scaling Q1 next year to 100,000 liters.
That sounds like a big number. How do you get to that scale so quickly?
We work with counterparts that advise us on this journey, and we have been very quick to go from lab scale to these 100,000 liters. And these are the quantities that actually big food and cosmetic producers need.
What's been the biggest surprise or even lesson that you've learned along the way that you didn't think of as you went along when you first started? Because it's very different from conception to where you are today.
One of the best surprises that we've seen is that there's a lot of support for these kinds of activities. We see strong ecosystem support from the government. We see pull from the industry that need these products. And what we found challenging is bringing all the knowledge and the infrastructure together into the company to actually make it scale.